Greetings, friends, and welcome to episode 17 of The Bible Yogi. I am your host, Douglas Roberts, and we are on Joseph Saves the World, the story of Joseph, part 4, at Genesis 41. So let's have a quick synopsis of Joseph's life, what we've covered recently. Now, Joseph had a dream where he would become ruler of everyone, but his brothers hated him. They threatened to kill him and sold him instead into slavery. Joseph then became Potiphar's slave and became master of the man's entire house. This happened because Potiphar recognized how trustworthy, actually the exact scripture says Potiphar recognized that God was with him. Joseph spurned the advances of Potiphar's wife. Angry, she accused him of attempted rape, and then Joseph gets thrown into prison. In prison, the warden, recognizing Joseph's true character, sets him over all the prison. Joseph interprets the dreams of Pharaoh's butler and baker correctly. If you remember, that was the one where the butler was, squeezing the grapes, and the grapes were into the cup, and he handed the cup to Pharaoh. And then the baker had a dream where birds were eating bread out of his basket on his head. And the butler was restored to his position, and the baker was hung from a tree and killed. Then Pharaoh had some troubling dreams of the 7 cows. If you remember that, there were 7 healthy cows on one side of the river, and then there were 7 sickly-looking cows that came up out of the river, and they ate the healthy cows. So Pharaoh was very troubled by these dreams, didn't know what they meant. None of the magicians in Egypt could explain it. And then that's when Pharaoh's butler remembered Joseph, probably, a few years after he'd been released, and we sympathized with the butler somewhat, and we're not in a big hurry to remind Pharaoh about the time when he threw us in prison, right? So anyway, Joseph is brought forth out of the prison. He interprets these dreams correctly, and Pharaoh sets Joseph as governor over all of the Egyptian empire. Remember, he said, if God has shown this to you, then certainly there's no other man that's more discerning than you are. So he made him governor. And now that we're all caught up to speed, we take up our story in Genesis chapter 41, verses 45 through 57. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paaneah, and he gave him to wife Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. And I see your hand back there. Hey, Bible Yogi, perhaps you would enlighten us to what in the world this name, Zaphnath-Paaneah, what does it mean? And so I went to my trusty reference Bible, looked it up, and found absolutely nothing, no help at all. So I went to my concordance and looked up the word Zaphnath-Paaneah, and it was no help either. And so then I went to all my other old-time reference Bibles and looked, no help, nowhere, no how. So now what? Well, I went to wikipedia.org, and lo and behold, they have an article called Zaphnath-Paaneah. Here it is. And this explained what the word means. So in my Bible studies episode, I don't think I mentioned Wikipedia, but it can also be a very rich source for this kind of thing, as can ChatGPT, believe it or not. I've asked ChatGPT about certain things, and she can really hammer out some good synopsis of stuff, some good summaries, and it's an excellent resource for Bible study, to be honest with you. On this page, on Wikipedia, we have interpretations. Now, Targum Onkelos and Targum Pseudo-Jonathan, these are early translations of the Torah, and they give the meaning as the man to whom hidden things are revealed. And the Pseudo-Jonathan says, the man who revealeth mysteries. And then Josephus, Josephus was a Roman Jewish historian and military leader, best known for writing the Jewish War. He was born in Jerusalem, then part of the Roman province of Judea, to a father of priestly descent and a mother who claimed royal ancestry. He called this name a finder of mysteries. Okay, we're good. We believe that this is what it means, because after all, Joseph did interpret the dream and he revealed the mysteries, so it makes perfect sense. So onward with our story. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And I hear what you're saying back there. Yes, you, sir. Yes, my timeline that I gave in the last episode was off by quite a bit. Here's Joseph. He's 30 years old now. And if we go back to our timeline, when Joseph was thrown into the pit, sold as a slave, he was about 17 years old. Then he got sold as a slave to Potiphar, thrown in prison. And now here we are 13 years later, and he's 30 years old when he stands before Pharaoh. So 13 years have gone by since his brothers last saw him, or threw him into the pit. So let's just split the difference. Let's say that he was a slave for 6 years, and then he was a prisoner for 6 years. And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls. And Joseph gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. Left numbering means he stopped counting it and keeping an account of it all, because it was without number. And unto Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of famine came, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, bare unto him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God, said he, hath made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second son called he Ephraim, for God hath caused me to be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended. And the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said, and the dearth was in all the lands. But in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, and what he says to you, do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened up all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was sore in all lands. Now, this is interesting. Remember I said that Joseph's life was a messianic type, that things that happened to Joseph and his life were later mirrored in Jesus' life. And here we see that Jesus also fed the hungry multitudes. And this is called the story of the loaves and fishes. This happened at least twice, and it's mentioned in, I think, at least Luke and Matthew. In Matthew chapter 14, verses 15 through 21, and when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals, food. But Jesus said unto them, They need not depart. Give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he said, Bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake, and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat and were filled, and they took up all the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full, compared to just having 5 loaves. So in other words, they've all ate, and lo and behold, 12 baskets full were left over. And they that had eaten were 5,000 men, besides women and children. Now the children of Israel come to Egypt for food. Genesis chapter 42, verses 1 through 8. Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his son, Why do ye look upon one another? And I always thought that was kind of a funny verse in my reference Bible. American Standard says, Why are you staring at one another? So you picture these guys with these dumb looks on their face. You're looking around like, what are we supposed to do? And Jacob said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. So Jacob the patriarch solves this problem. And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. This should sound familiar to everybody. Remember the dream of the sheaths that Joseph said, my sheath stood up and all your sheaths bowed down to my sheath. And then Joseph had the dream of the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the sun, the moon, and the stars all bowed obeisance to Joseph. I'll bet he's going, aha, now I get it, right? Now you suddenly remembered that dream, I'll bet. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, whence came ye? And they said, from the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. They didn't recognize him. After all, now remember, that's why I gave the timeline. Joseph was 17. Then he became governor when he was 30. And now 7, 8, or 9 years have passed. The famine has ravaged the land. So Joseph is like at least 38 years old here. So they haven't seen him for 19 years at least. So he probably has a full beard now. And he's, governor over Egypt. They certainly didn't expect to see him there. I guess they never believed in his dreams. This is also something that happened to Jesus. Jesus was also not known by his brethren. If you remember, we haven't gone there yet, but Jesus was always asking his disciples, who do the masses say that I am? And he said to Peter, hey, who do you think I am? And John makes this remark in chapter 1, verses 10 through 11. Jesus was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. So, well, of course not. They crucified him, so they didn't recognize him for who he was. Back to the story of Joseph. Now, this is where it's interesting. I've said before that try to place yourself in the position of some of these characters, the protagonists in the Bible. And I don't know about you, but this is pretty difficult to put myself in the place of Joseph here. I've been, maybe lied to, or I wouldn't say, out and out betrayed or anything like that. No one's tried to kill me, not my brothers anyway. I was never sold into slavery. I never was thrown in prison unjustly. And I certainly never interpreted a bunch of dreams and was made governor over the, president of the United States. But Joseph did. And now he has his brothers bowing obeisance before him. But let's try to put ourselves in his shoes, and what would we be thinking as our dreams are remembered in all this? And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. Now I'll admit, that would not be my take. I would say, I would be tempted to immediately go, hey guys, it's me, Joseph. Right? And you're bowing down to me. Booyah! Take that, you dogs! Now, but not Joseph. Okay. And they said unto him, nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. So they're all humble. So Joseph, we are all one man's sons. We are true men. We're good people, Joseph. But thy servants are no spies. And he said unto them, nay, but to see the nakedness of the land thou art come. And they said, thy servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, now what would you say if you were in this position? I would immediately, aha! What happened to that other brother, you lying spies? But he doesn't say that. That is what I spake unto you, saying, ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved. By the life of Pharaoh ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither. Send one of you, and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be kept in prison, that your words may be proved, whether there be any truth in you, or else by the life of Pharaoh, surely you are spies. And he put them all together into ward, prison, 3 days. And Joseph said unto them the third day, This do and live, for I fear God. If you be true men, let one of your brethren be bound in the house of your prison. Go ye, carry corn for the famine of your houses, but bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one to another, We are verily guilty concerning our brother, in that we saw the anguish of his soul when he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, Spake I not unto you, saying, Do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear. Therefore, behold, also his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for he spake unto them by an interpreter. And he turned himself from them and wept, and returned to them again and communed with them. And he took from them Simeon, and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money unto his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus he did unto them. And they laded their asses with the corn, and departed thence. No camels in the story. I'm a little bit disappointed, as I'm sure you all are. Now, what is this? What is going on here? Joseph understands Hebrew, obviously, so they're all murmuring. And but Joseph is fooling them. He's got an interpreter, interpreting what they say to him. But it's interesting here. Remember, Joseph, when he was thrown into the pit, Reuben was not one of the brothers that did that. Remember, Reuben said, don't murder him, throwing him in a pit. And he was thinking, I'll come back around later and rescue the kid. And that didn't happen. And they pulled him up and sold him into slavery. So what does Joseph do now is that it's confirmed right before his eyes that Reuben had no part in Joseph being sold into slavery. So when he's going to grab a brother and throw him in prison, he skips over Reuben. If you remember, the order of Jacob's children was Reuben, then Simeon, then Levi, Judah, Issachar, etc. But Simeon was the second oldest. So Joseph chose him, the second oldest, to be stuck into prison, sparing Reuben. And I feel it's because Reuben was the guy who did not go along with their conspiracy. And what's interesting about this, like I said, I would have revealed myself right away. And I said, I told you guys would bow down to me. How does it feel? Right? But Joseph didn't do that. Instead, he's taken his time revealing himself to them. Now, what is up with that? But Jesus also did that. And this is when Jesus had risen from the dead. And now he's appearing to his disciples, a few here, a few there. And he's slowly revealing himself to everybody. And this is Gospel of John, chapter 24, the very last story in the whole Gospel of John. Behold, two of them, disciples, were going that very day to a village named Emmaus, which was 60 stadia, about 11 kilometers or 7 miles from Jerusalem. They talked with each other about all these things which had happened. It happened while they talked and questioned together that Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. That sounds familiar, right? Joseph's brothers did not recognize him. And he said to them, What are you talking about as you walk and are sad? One of them, named Cleopas, answered him, Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who doesn't know the things which have happened there in these days? He said to them, What things? They said to him, The things concerning Jesus, the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and a word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we were hoping that it was he who would redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the third day since these things happened. Now, remember, the disciples' eyes were somehow, Peter himself betrayed Jesus before, or denied knowing Jesus when he was at trial. So the disciples themselves did not understand God's redemptive plan. They did not understand that Jesus was going to go to the cross and die and then resurrect. It was not revealed to them yet. And when they also, certain women of our company amazed us, having arrived early at the tomb. And when they did not find his body, they came saying that they had also seen a vision of angels and said that he was alive. An interesting footnote for all you women out there, that women were the first people to be told by an angel or God himself that Jesus was risen from the dead. Some of us went to the tomb and found it just like the women had said, but they didn't see him. Jesus said to them, "Foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all the prophets have spoken. Didn't the Christ have to suffer these things and to enter into his glory? Beginning from Moses," hey, that's what we're reading right now, "and from all the prophets, he explained to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself." That's exactly what I'm doing in my channel. How about that? They drew near to the village where they were going, and he acted like he would go further. They urged him, saying, "Stay with us, for it is almost evening, and the day is almost over." He went in to stay with them. It happened that when he had sat down at the table with them, he took the bread and gave thanks. Breaking it, he gave it to them. And their eyes were opened, and they recognized him. Maybe it's from that loaves and fishes thing, They've seen that before. But anyway, they recognized him. God opened their eyes, and he vanished out of their sight. Whoa. That should convince them that something, supernatural is going on, right? And they said to one another, "Weren't our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us along the way, while he opened the scriptures to us?" They rose up that very hour, returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered there, the 11 disciples. Remember, Judas Iscariot had ran out and hung himself after he was the one who betrayed Christ. Peter only denied Christ. Sorry about that little slip. They rose up that very hour, returned to Jerusalem, and found the 11 gathered together, and those who were with them, saying, "The Lord is risen indeed, and has appeared to Simon." They related the things that happened along the way, and how he was recognized by them in the breaking of the bread. As they said these things, Jesus himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be to you." But they were terrified and filled with fear, and supposed that they had seen a spirit. And he said to them, "Why are you troubled? Why do doubts arise in your hearts?" Now imagine being these disciples and seeing the risen Christ for the first time. Well, it's another one of those times where, no, I can't. Nothing I've experienced, I cannot put myself in this place. I imagine I'd be freaking out. That's for sure. Especially if I had understood something totally different. Like all these Jews, they all believed that the Redeemer was going to come and bring peace by becoming the ruler of, Israel. Like Joseph had become ruler of Egypt. They wanted a king or something. They didn't expect to see him crucified. And now here he is resurrected. And they don't get it yet. They don't understand the redemptive plan of God quite yet. So he said to them, "Why are you troubled? Why do doubts arise in your hearts? See my hands and my feet. It is truly me." Remember the scars from the nails going through his hands? So boom, he's showing them to him. "And my feet, which also have holes in them, that it is truly me. Touch me and see, for a spirit doesn't have flesh and bones, as you see that I have." Even though he can appear out of nowhere and vanish out of nowhere, he still has bones and flesh. When he said this, he showed them his hands and feet. While they still didn't believe for joy and wondered, he said to them, "Do you have anything here to eat?" Oh, yeah, sure, Jesus. It's almost like he's trying to, knock them out of their stupor, so to speak. But maybe he's also hungry, right? They gave him a piece of broiled fish and some honeycomb, and he took them and ate them in front of him. And he said, "This is what I told you while I was still with you, that all the things which are written in the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms concerning me must be fulfilled." Then he opened their minds, and they understood the scriptures, which is kind of what we're trying to do here, right? Mine too, for that matter. My mind, needs to be open to understand all these scriptures. And it's helping quite a bit, really, going through all this. He said to them, "Thus it is written, and thus it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead the third day." See, that's the mystery that they all missed. right? They expected a ruler, and Jesus finally explains, verse 46, it was necessary for the Christ to suffer and to rise from the dead the third day. Isaiah 51 or 53. Go read both of them. It's for your homework, And that repentance and remission of sins should be preached in his name to all the nations, beginning at Jerusalem. You are witnesses of these things. Behold, I send forth the promise of my Father on you, but wait in the city of Jerusalem until you are clothed with power from on high, the baptism of the Holy Spirit. He led them out as far as Bethany, and he lifted up his hands and blessed them. It happened while he blessed them that he withdrew from them and was carried up into heaven. They worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and they were continually in the temple praising and blessing God. Amen. The Ascension. And that's a great place to end our story today, and I'll see you as soon as I can. Until next time, everybody, please take care, be careful, and Happy New Year, and I hope you had good holidays. Take care.